But we're starting out with what is the most common category, making up 24% of the top-ranked podcasts. Can you guess what the top ranks are? True crime. I love the Tam fam. Y'all so smart. Our first podcast, this is actually breaking news, has been climbing the charts since its release last month. And earlier in the week, it became the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts. So we're starting out with the top, right? So here's the story. In Bakersfield, California in 2018, within 5 weeks, 2 friends went missing and a third was murdered. They've become known as the Bakersfield Three. Take a listen.
On the surface, the case seemed tragic, but fairly straightforward.
He had a really nice house, nice things, and let her drive his car, and I thought she liked that.
A beautiful young woman living with an older man.
I thought she liked playing, housewife.
The young woman was now missing. The older boyfriend said she'd simply vanished.
He was really trying to point fingers in different directions at everybody but himself.
But if this sounds like the beginning of a story you've heard before, trust me, it's not.
It's one of the few times in my career where I've been warned, hey, you don't want to dig too deep on this one.
As it turned out, within a month of the young woman's disappearance, one of her friends had also gone missing.
We had no proof of anything. We just knew they were gone.
And another friend had just been murdered.
These 3 people knew each other, and they're all either, at this point, dead or missing.
Is it 3 mysteries or 1?
Please welcome the host of the Bakersfield Three, journalist Olivia LaVoice. Come on out, Olivia. I have to say, I do a true crime show, so I know the challenge of wanting to bring the stories of the victims, but also wanting the audience to know you're not doing this for the ranking. You're not doing this for the fame. You actually found yourself as a reporter in a room looking through cold cases and came across this case.
So part of my job to try to find big stories was to always go through search warrants at the courthouse. But if there was a search warrant about a homicide case or a missing persons case, law enforcement always sealed it, right? So a lot of times doing this almost felt a little pointless. But then one day I was going through a search warrant that was pretty routine. It was
What was in the search warrant?
So the search warrant was about a felon being in possession of a firearm.
Which you thought at the time, okay, that's not so unusual, right?
That's not something I'm probably going to put on the news. That happens all the time. But there was one line in the search warrant that mentioned a missing woman, and that was really all I needed.
So what has been so compelling about this story is that, they always talk about the love of a mother. The love of mothers came into play in this. And I think that's what pushes the heartstring here.
I completely agree. I think that no one will fight harder for you than your mom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so true. It's so true.
So in the podcast, you have Jane Parent, that's Bailey Despot's mom, Cheryl Holson-Bake, that's Micah's mom, and then Diane Byrne, James Kulstad's mom. So you have these moms who unite through grief and through their desire and demand for answers.
Yes.
What was the most compelling thing for you? I mean, as you saw these women they kind of operate as their own investigative unit.
100%. I mean, and these were 3 moms who knew nothing about investigating crime, right? But when it's your child, you're going to do anything and everything to get answers. And I've been around a lot of amazing detectives and investigators, right? I've never seen anything like I've seen these 3 moms do. They just wouldn't take no for an answer.
There was another reporter who told you that he was warned not to dig too deep into this case. Let's play the clip.
It's one of the few times in my career where I've kind of almost been warned, hey, you don't want to dig too deep on this one, which was unusual for me and a little scary too, when you get told that. It's like, I remember one person just telling me, hey, these are really bad guys. They are, these are the type of guys that make people disappear.
So, I mean, I don't want to give too much away in the podcast because, obviously people can listen and follow along. I've been a journalist for 30 years. I have been in some pretty scary situations where I was like, can people have my next of kin on the line?
Right.
You were faced with this person saying, these are some bad people involved in this. Were there worries about your own safety?
You know, it's interesting because looking back, I probably should have been a little nervous. You know, I was living alone in a town where I really didn't know that many people. But at the time when I had sources, you know, saying, hey, you really should be careful on this one, it just made me more intrigued. And I remember one of the moms actually asked me, are you too scared to keep going? And I just thought the last thing in the world I want to do is abandon the moms. I mean, they were so brave. That made it, I think, really easy to be brave alongside them.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Olivia. You can listen to all 15 episodes of the Bakersfield 3 wherever you listen to your podcast.